Want to stop posting more and start being heard online? Today, I chat with Carrolee Moore, founder of the Podcast Pitching Society, about how to turn podcast guesting into visibility that sells. So, if you want more visibility and more contracts, this is the show for you. Learn about pitching, appearing, and converting right here today. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Let's strategize together. Let's hear it from an expert. Join the conversation, it's informative and free. You and me, let's talk some strategy. Here's your host, Morin-van.
Hello, everybody. I am back with another episode of Strategy Talks. I'm very excited today to talk about podcasting and how you can use podcasting, being a guest on a podcast, to increase your visibility. Before I bring the guest onto the stage with me, I want to welcome all of you who are here live with us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or YouTube. I'd love to know where you're watching. Put that in the comments. If you're watching this on the replay and you have questions for us, put hashtag replay and your question in the comments. My guest, myself, we will be monitoring and we'd be happy to answer your questions. Now, as always, I want to welcome those of you who listen to Strategy Talks as a podcast, and I want you to know you're valuable to us. So we thank you for listening and being with us today. So now I want to welcome Carrolee. How are you today, Carrolee?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about podcast guesting, and we were just in the green room, and we're just going to start with putting this out in the open. You're one of only three or four people this season, so year 4, that's made it on the show, of people that I didn't know prior to being on the show. That means that your pitch is really good. So let's talk about the pitch. And I'm going to let you go and tell me what you think you pitched, and then I'm going to say what I heard.
I love that. So one of the ways that we talk to our clients when they're wanting to get into podcast pitching, we talk about you need to be of service. Whatever you're going to say in that pitch needs to be clear. What is the value that the audience will get from your appearance? It's not about you rattling off all of your expertise and the schools that you went to and the places that you worked and all the things. I know that you're proud of that. That's fantastic. That is not the place to go and list all of those things. You need to be clear, you need to be concise, and it needs to make sense for the podcast that you're pitching. You need to make it obvious that you've actually listened to the podcast, and that whole played out I just listened to the last episode. Yeah, I can tell that you just literally looked at the podcast. What was the last episode? Popped it in there. That's no longer that was a good pitch. Everyone's onto that game. What you should be doing is looking to see what other kinds of conversations have been on this podcast that is relatively similar, that you can say, oh, this person listened to the podcast, hear what their perspective is, and be like, hey, this is how I actually can be different from that. Or, hey, I really enjoyed this conversation. I think the way that I framed it was and then I started listening to other ones after I found that conversation. And I was like, okay, we definitely need to pitch this person. That to me is a much more genuine way to go about it, because one, it's human. So it's clear that AI didn't write the pitch from scratch. And then 2, you're actually showing I care about you and your audience, not just trying to get myself on here to, basically have a 30 or 45 minute sales pitch. So yeah, your pitch is really important, but I would say the biggest things is just to be specific, be clear, and be short. There's a bonus. Give all the things up front, right? we have, if I'm not mistaken, you also got a guest info sheet that had the same information, just in a concise, even more concise way. Whereas like, if you didn't want to read all of that, you could pop open that PDF and see all that information kind of right there for you. And we also gave you an idea for the episode, like what we would be talking about.
Yes.
So those are really important.
And that's what happens. So I get a lot of pitches. And if you run a podcast, you know this, you get pitched all the time. And just like you said, it's that template that some coach gave out for free that everybody's using. I watch your last episode. I have somebody who's just like that, that would be great, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, nope. Then the other thing that I look for, and what I liked about yours, is for sure that you talked about a topic that's already been on the show, but you gave it a different angle, right? I've talked about podcasting. I'm passionate about live streaming, but I had not talked to anybody until today about podcast guesting necessarily as a way to gain the visibility. So I loved that angle. And then, yes, looking at the PDF, I could see who you were, what your expertise was, what you had to offer. So that made it really easy. And then I didn't say yes right away. I'm like, I'm interested. Let's have a conversation. And then you and I met about a week ago and we got to talking. And now I feel like I know you. So that definitely was a good fit. So the other people that I've said yes to are people that this is the kind of the international season for me. So I had somebody pitch to me from Lithuania, and he was talking about localization language, which is really fun. I'm bilingual. I thought that was great. So that was a completely different angle, but really great for anybody who runs a business. And then the other one was somebody who wrote a book from he lives in Brazil, but he wrote a book and had it produced by MIT. And he talked about AI agents, which I hadn't talked about. So that, again, this was a topic that fit into my show, fit to my audience, but that was new to me. It was a breath of fresh air. So those are the two other people that I remember. There might be one more, but that's it for a whole year. That's all who I accepted. So I think the pitch is really important. And one of the things that I want to make sure that you understand is, when you're listening to this, it's okay to hire somebody, right? To hire somebody to pitch for you, as long as they understand what you had to offer. Because
Bingo.
That there are agencies out there who offer to do this for you, but they literally blanket every show with the same pitch. And it doesn't work. If you're paying somebody to pitch you and you're not getting anywhere, that's what they're doing.
Also, we have to remember that this is your reputation on the line. If you're sending these pitches and your name is on a pitch that has the wrong podcast title to the wrong person, or completely misses, oh yeah, we love your conversation with so-and-so. You're like, I've never even had that person on my show. Who is that? Right? These are like things that I've heard, horror stories that I've heard from clients that have come over to us from working with other agencies. You have now the advent of AI and AI bots, not only writing the pitch, but sending the pitch. I want to say, from my perspective, I feel like most people can tell.
Yes.
When something does not have that human touch. And on top of that, if you are just getting a pitch to say, hey, my name is so-and-so, I run this business, I do these things, I serve these people, but you're not actually answering the what's in it for me question, biggest miss.
Yeah.
Biggest miss, because you're also just kind of like blending in with everyone else.
Yeah.
We all think we're special. Our credentials are not. We are. Right?
That's good. I love that.
Those are two different things. There's a lot of people with a medical doctorate, right? A Juris Doctorate. There isn't anyone else that is exactly like you. So if you're leaning in on the credentials, like at this point, there are too many of those people at play. You need to figure out what is your unique secret sauce, what we call your visibility PowerPoint, and standing on that PowerPoint. that's going to get people to say, let me go and let me see what is behind this. Right.
Yeah.
And I could have bombed that conversation that we had after the pitch was good. Because it could have been like, oh, the pitch was great, but what?
Right. You
This
still have to
doesn't
have
match.
this right. Yeah. Yeah. There's two more things I want to say about pitching, and then I will move on to how to be a good guest, right? How to prepare and stuff. But two things. Most of my pitches come in on Monday morning. So if you're pitching, find a different time of the week. Be different. Don't come in my email at 9 a.m. on Monday with 5 other pitches. That it just seems to be, for me, that's the time that everybody picks. Oh, this is my task of the week. That's when they send it out. Just, don't do that. And then the other thing that I want to tell everybody, I accept pitches through LinkedIn DMs. If you follow me on LinkedIn, if you engage with my podcast, because it's a live show and then a podcast, just like this one, if you comment, if you're present, if you then slide into my DMs, have a conversation, even if it's not you want to pitch a client, I'm all ears, because that shows effort. It shows your time investment in me and my show. So I actually have somebody coming on next season that has come, that I said yes to a cold pitch, because their podcast pitch person, their agency, watched my show several times, came to my lives, asked questions, engaged, then went to my DMs, introduced me to her person. I think it's going to be a great fit. So it doesn't always have to be email, but it has to, again, be the right pitch. So at least for me, that works as well, especially if I know you're engaging.
Yeah. And I'll close with follow up. Much like any other pitch, if you're doing cold outreach for sales, for anything, know that the money, when it comes to sales, is in the follow up. A lot of times we assume, okay, I sent that first pitch. Oh, I got ignored. They must not like me. No, people are busy. People, they're inundated with other pitches, right? You showing that initiative, like you just said, just stepping outside of the norm a little bit will show people oh, we've gone through and had 3 follow-up emails sent. And on that third follow-up is when the person's like, oh my God, thank you so much. I was on vacation, completely missed this. You would be fantastic for the show. Let's do this. What if we had given up 2 emails ago because it was oh, they're not responding. Yeah. So I'll leave you guys with that piece. Make sure that you're following up.
Yeah. So then you have a yes.
Yes.
So then you're invited on a show. Carrolee, how should somebody get ready for that appearance on the show? I don't always, especially if I know people, I don't always do a pre-meeting. You and I had a pre-meeting because we didn't know each other. But I don't always do that. I just be show up 15 minutes early. I've got questions. I'm the host. I got you. I've done the research on you. But what can somebody as a guest do to be really prepared to make this a good experience for both them as well as for their host?
Great. So the first piece is getting your mindset correct. I think a lot of people are seeing podcasts as just a conversation. And that is your biggest mistake, especially if you're trying to do this to grow your visibility. If you're just trying to do this to have fun and just hang out, cool. But if this is a business strategy, if you're wanting to actually get in front of leads and do all that, there is a way for you to think about this. And that's the first shift of this is not just a conversation for me. This is an opportunity for me to introduce myself to people who have no idea who I am and what I do and what the impact is that I've gotten from my clients, et cetera, et cetera. So as you're preparing for it, I would think of it almost like a mini keynote. How would you prepare for a mini keynote? You would think about the stories that you want to tell, right? And get really specific with that. We were just talking about the pitch that I sent. And the reason for that is before we got on the air, I was like, oh no, we need to use that. Let's start with that story.
That's right? It's a great story. It's a great story. Yeah.
Right.
So,
and it proves for my part of hey, I actually do the thing that I'm teaching other people and that I'm doing for my clients. So it is showing already without me even saying, hey, I've done this and I've won this awards. And it's already showing you, hey, I know what I'm talking about with a very specific story. And that's what you want to kind of come armed with, is really clear key stories. The way that we put this out is in a framework, which is the problem, the solution, and the impact. Problem, solution, impact. If you answer all of your questions when you're asked, doesn't matter what it is on a podcast, if they're like, what are the 5 mistakes that, everyone makes with whatever, most people, the 5 mistakes are, and then that's what it is. Be like, the 5 mistakes are but. And I've seen this actually happen with my client. One of my client, Bob went problem, solution, which you're obviously going to be a part of, and then impact, which speaks directly to your offer, right? And as you're going through the interview, you're giving a lot of value. People are getting so much good stuff, but you're also seeding in, hey, I can do this for you. Mm-hmm. Hey, you have the same problem with like Bob? I'm the solution, right? Oh, you want it? I've got you. And so by the end of it, and you offer whatever if it's a freebie, if it's a, hey, hop on my calendar, so we can actually have a conversation straight to sales, they're ready for that. Mm-hmm. Whoever it is that's listening is ready for that. So the conversation that you're prepping for is, yes, a good one, but it is also like sales psychology in there. There's some strategic storytelling in there. You are learning how to be gracious and like really understanding how to serve this podcaster's audience while also understanding that you're running a business. And every conversation needs to have some level of like, hey, what is the opportunity here? Even if the opportunity is just for you to get in front of new people, for them to know what you offer, that's fantastic because they'll get on your email list and you never know what a buyer is down the line. But if you come in not prepared to have those conversations, not prepared to be specific, then you're setting yourself up for failure. The other thing that you should be doing beforehand is practicing, and this is something we do with our clients. See, I just did that.
No, I love it. This is so good. I know with everything that's happening with AI and search and web traffic, we want to be on other people's podcasts. We want other people to tell the story of who we are, not just us putting out blog posts, right? We want to be seen. We want AI to pick up on all this stuff. So this is more and more what's happening. I'm getting more and more pitches. People want to be on the podcast. People want other people to validate them. So this is a perfect topic as we get ready for 2026.
For sure. 2026 is going to be a game changer for podcast guesting. If you have been thinking about it, stop thinking about it, start doing it, because this is no longer going to be a little kept secret. Like, oh, but 2026, as soon as marketers really get a hold of this, we ruin everything. Trust me. We did it to Facebook ads. Like it's about to be a problem. And so you need to get in on this. And also people are going to start charging for their podcast a lot more because they're seeing the impact that folks that are coming on their podcast have. If you're closing multiple 5-figure deals, like I want a piece of that, which I understand that model, right? But again, if you're coming on the podcast and you're preparing, make sure that you're actually game planning. Okay, for these kinds of questions, how would I answer this, especially if they give you questions beforehand? It's perfect because then you can game plan how to perform it. So you're not sounding like a robot. Like I rehearsed this, I'm reading off the paper, right? But you're prepared. And so you can add levels to it. The other thing and this is kind of tied to what I just said, remember that you are responsible for the energy of the podcast. I don't care if the host is dry as paint on a wall. You're responsible for the energy. You're responsible for people being like, oh man, I want to sit and listen to this person. And if you're an introvert, it doesn't mean that you have to be loud. Loudness doesn't actually mean like you're like good or whatever. You can be quiet, but also choose your moments for when you show your passion. Choose your moments for like which words you emphasize. So it like adds a little bit of extra whatever. Choose your moments for humor. When you want to add in a little bit like, yeah, I thought choose those moments and be intentional. If you can practice that, then you'll find, and we've actually gotten feedback from most of our clients who are introverts, that because of the practice and because I'm like kind of a hard, during the practice runs, when they go on these podcasts, they're like, I was so much more comfortable. Like I felt like I knew what I was doing. I knew the answers that I wanted to give. And when I was asked questions, I had specific things to pull from. Because what happens, and I know this for a fact for myself and other experts as well, when you've been doing something for 20 years, you have so many examples that you stop talking in specifics. For someone who only has 2 clients, guess what they're going to be talking about? Those 2 clients. If you've had 50, 100, 300 people, 1,000 people that you've helped over the course of your career, of course, it's going to all kind of blend in. But if you can pick out the absolutely like crazy results, crazy impact, really, really good, solid example of what you're able to do, if you can pick those out and be specific during the interview, I promise you, the people that are supposed to find you, that are listening to that are wanting those kinds of solutions, if you can clearly state and bring them on the journey of whoever it is that started at that challenge phase, you will find leads coming into your inbox. I promise you.
This is so good. This is so good. Before we go to impact on, how you can leave and what you can get out of the podcast and what you can expect, let's talk about what not to do as a guest. I don't need this to be a long thing, but there's probably some things not to do. What do you coach your clients on that is a definite no-no as they prepare or as they go on as a guest?
Okay. So the first one is, I already mentioned it, energy. Don't be boring. This is a podcast. Most of the podcasts are still audio. So they're not going to see your hands flailing. You have to kind of find a way to make your voice dynamic. Yeah. If you have to kind of add an extra whatever, my voice is typically super monotonous, right? But when I'm on a podcast, call it a podcast voice or whatever you want to call it, there are things that you do to ensure that there is like just dynamics there, which is the first piece. The second, so just don't do that. The second is don't be late, respect people's time. And then the other is be mindful of making sure that you have your sound right, that your background is good, and that you're able to kind of see yourself and everything is clean and clear. Just essentially be professional when you're getting on the podcast. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people with like dirty backgrounds or their audio is kind of sketchy or their whole thing.
Dogs running around, doorbell ringing. We've gone there, done that. One thing I would add is just get in the habit of turning off all your notifications, both on your desktop and your phone when you get ready to get on a podcast. So you are not, like everything is gone. All your tabs are closed. You're not going to be looking at your phone because somebody texts you. I've had that happen where somebody's phone is dinging and then I'm talking and they're like, no, please don't do that. So thank you for pointing those things out. So let's then move on to the impact. I'm going to assume, which is what I do, is that before I go on, I would have kind of like a goal and outcome of what I want to gain from being on the podcast, right? Mm-hmm. So can you speak to that, what the impact can be and what we as a guest can expect or what we can request or as a host what we could offer? I mean, I guess those are all kind of tied together.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take it a little bit away and then bring it back. Yeah. So you should have a plan, absolutely, before you get on a podcast as to like what the purpose of you being on that podcast is. But you also, while you're on the podcast, ensure that you're actually, like I said, performing in a way where you can use the materials elsewhere, which is why I mentioned making sure that your video quality is like up to snuff, making sure that your audio is up to snuff, because this is the actual content. There is no going back and trying to like make it all whatever. So if you are using a lot of during your answers, you can take them out after what, or you could just think about that and be like, okay, I say, like for me, one of my pet peeves that I know I've already done in this interview, it is what it is I say right at times. I'd be like, yeah, right. And like, I'll do that a lot. And it's so annoying. when you're listening to yourself and you're like, man, if you don't stop. So if you know that already coming in, then as you're speaking, if you know that you're a super slow speaker, like Barack Obama level, where it's like 5 minutes for a sentence, make sure that you're aware of that and and the same thing goes for like us Northerners who tend to speak a little bit faster, and making sure that you're slowing down a little bit so articulation is good. And so again, when you clip that for future usage, you're fine. Make sure that your hands aren't doing anything weird because again, as you're talking, this is going to be put in some other format. You want to make sure that it's good. So that's a huge thing, is just making sure that you're already aware. Yes, this is my goal. I want to get leads. I want to get whatever it is. But you also want to make sure that while you're on the podcast, as you're answering the questions, I have in my head, oh, that's a clip. As I'm talking, especially if I'm like, oh, this is good, like that's a clip. And so
it's funny. I'm going to tell you, before we used AI to clip clips, I've been doing this for 4 years. I would have a piece of paper while I was interviewing, and I have, on there, it has a little timer, and it'd be like, Carrolee, and it'd be like 10:10. 11:59. I'd write down the timestamps as you would be talking as my guest, because I would have to find those later. And at one point I had an editor. So if I could give the editor 4 timestamps, that would help. Now we are in the age of AI, I'm putting it in Descript, and I say, I want 10 clips of Carrolee speaking, don't have me speaking, 30 seconds to 45 seconds, these are the topics, and boom, the clips are there. If I don't like the clips, I don't download them. I go back and give a new prompt and better clips. So it definitely has changed, but I love that you said that. I do the right all the time, and I do all the editing myself for the podcast, and I do take those out for the podcast, not for obviously the live show. I can't take them out, but there are some guests I can see the difference of, sometimes it's 120 in half an hour or likes or whatever. Sometimes it's like 300. And
wow.
You can tell who's more seasoned, who's done more of these interviews. And the other thing that, I guess I'm doing it now is, but just slow yourself down, end a sentence, think about what you're going to say. And that also helps the clipping and moving forward, and it prevents you from saying those words to get the sentences together, like all those things.
Yeah. And I remember too, and again, this is still something that I'm trying to avoid, is I will stop myself mid-sentence, start a new sentence, a new thought. And I'm like, why? So again, just being able to self-edit will help you to actually get a good enough, solid enough, like final product without heavy editing to be able to put it into social media, et cetera. But beyond social media, because we always talk about that, and we know that we can use podcast content on socials. My background is in sales. And that's actually one of the things I would say is a differentiator for how we approach podcast guesting, is because I'm always thinking about how can this serve my pipeline, whether this is for people who are just getting aware of me and are trying to say, okay, is this person for real? And then they're going down this pipeline, or maybe it's someone who has decided they're going to do a actual sales call with me. How can I serve that person? I can serve that person by sending them podcast interviews I've already done, talking about what podcast guesting is, how amazing it is for people who are experts, and And it actually helps me through that process. By the time they get on the call, they're now primed and understanding what the value is. And my job is to close that. Once they're closed, I can use all of the podcast guesting experiences I've had and create a library to say, hey, while you're waiting for us to put your stuff together, while we're doing all these other things, here's a library of information about me talking about thought leadership and me talking about all these other things. And so you're able to actually use and reuse your experiences on these podcasts for more than just social media content. Think outside of the box as to how the content that you're already creating can serve people at different parts of your funnel, meaning the folks that are up here that are just kind of learning about you, the folks in the middle that are thinking about making a decision to work with you, and even the folks that you have already gotten their money, they're your clients. How can you still use the content that you're creating now to serve them as well? So it's not just a social media play.
All right, we are at 30 minutes, but
Yeah.
I want to close this up. But I have one important question. We're talking as if we're assuming we're going to get all these assets. You're guesting. Is that something you have to verify before you go on somebody's? I mean, we were just talking about people paying to be on podcasts as guests. I kind of heard you say that and then to go in, but I have seen that happen this year where I've had a couple of emails of friends who are doing podcasts and you can pay to get on their podcast and then you get X, Y. But I give everything to everybody. I give you a transcript. I give you the video file. I'll give you images. I give you the clips. I give you everything. Is that an assumption of me that I want to give that freely because I want you to use it? Is that as a guest, should you ask for that, expect for that? Let's do this real quick. And then
sure. Expectations, no, because I don't think coming into anything with an expectation is a good thing. You always ask, so you know what the end result will be. So, hey, will I also get, and most podcasts will tell you up front, you'll see it, whether they do it or not. However, that's one of the reasons why we offer it as a service in our agency, is because not every podcast does that. I think that's awesome that you do that. But there are a lot of podcasts that don't. And of course, being the guest, you have a really big stake as whether or not this is successful. So you want to be able to promote it, and getting that as soon as possible to actually promote it the week that it's out is very, very important. So I would say, if you are going to be a guest, ask the question up front. Do not expect it, but have a plan for it. Because if someone says, no, I'm not going to offer it, then you already know, okay, I'm going to have to find someone to help me to create that content. Or if they say yes, please ask them if you can have at least one reel where it's only you speaking. Okay. I've seen this a lot where the reels that are being sent, I'm just going to be honest, from these podcast hosts have not only both people present, but both people are speaking. If you're trying to grow your business and grow your visibility and grow your authority and all the things, but you're now using clips, like think about if you're just going to use those all the time, it's not as clean, as crisp as if I were just like this, the only person speaking in the clip. And that is something that you need to make sure that, hey, can I just request that at least one or two of these have like a solo shot of me speaking? Most people will say yes, but you don't get what you don't ask for. So that's
fantastic. That's a fantastic tip. And actually I made that clicked with me last year at the beginning of my third season. I had done clips and I realized that all the clips featured my guests. I didn't have any clips of me. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the expert. I'm a podcast host. I'm a content manager. I'm a strategist. I say good things too. So I started clipping myself for my own shorts because I was forgetting that as a host. So I love that you bring that up. And I think that's good. And I'm going to add this to my list of, because nobody's asked me ever for it. You will get some. I promise you will get some. Because I want to just provide that. That's part of what I do. Because I'm building a relationship here. That's the other thing. I know we're already past time, but I'm building a relationship with you and with all of my guests. So when we meet in the green room, we become friends. You're part of my network. If I ever need to refer somebody to you, I will do that without hesitation because I know what you do and who you are. So I'll do that, but I'm going to add that to next year's strategy that I give everybody at least one or two clips that is just them, and maybe they will be able to share. We are done. We are past done. We are cooked. I love this conversation though, Carrolee, because this is what's really grown my business, podcasting and podcast guesting. So I love to be able to offer this opportunity to people in my network, right? Be part of my network. You can be part of the podcast. How can people connect with you? If somebody needs somebody like you, and a lot of people will need that because they don't know the outreach. They don't know the podcast field. They might not want to host their own podcast, but they see the value of being on somebody else's podcast.
Absolutely.
How did they find you and how did they connect with you?
So there are two things. We believe in kind of meeting people where they're at. So I'm going to talk about the DIY version of things and also the done for you. DIY, we have a new podcast pitching kit. It is actually the same system that got me booked on this show in a box. So you're getting something that you know that works, because I'm literally a product of the same pitch system that you're going to be able to create a fully customized. It's not a template. It is a system that you're going to be able to plug in different parts that we give you. So it becomes fully your actual pitch, which is awesome. So that's the first one. And you'll have a link to that. The second one is for anyone who is interested in getting done for you. You're like, listen, I'm not a DIY person. Like, I just want someone to do it, take it off my plate. I'm not going to actually pitch. I know that. Let's sit down and have a 30-minute conversation. I'm going to essentially look at all of the stuff that you're already doing for visibility, give you a game plan, and then show you how podcast guesting could actually work for you in your business, not in theory, but in reality. That's 30 minutes of that. I'm giving free of my time. And of course, I'm going to share with you all the things that we do for that. So you'll have those two links. If you want to just follow me for my rantings and all the things, LinkedIn is the best place to find me for that. Follow along and let's be friends.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Carrolee, for being with me today. I'm very excited for season 2026. I'm going to be watching what you're doing, and I'm so glad we connected. And guys, if you ever want to be guests on my show, I'm going to pitch myself here. Connect with me, watch my shows, ask questions of my guests, be part of my community, and have something to offer. My audience consists of marketers, business owners, small local businesses, people who want more visibility. If you're part of that audience and you want to be on my show, come talk to me. So thank you so much for being with me today. I'll be back next week with another episode of Strategy Talks, and we'll see you all later. Bye, everybody.